Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved is unprotected attack paths that allow threats to compromise vulnerable targets in the cloud and data center. But traditional microsegmentation is too complex and time-consuming. There's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable and management that's zero touch. Driven by machine learning, Edgewise automatically builds policies that protect any application in any cloud without any changes to your network. They provide measurable improvement by quantifying attack path risk reduction and verifying software identity before it communicates to stop application compromises and data breaches. To see how to eliminate your network attack surface, visit securityweekly.com/Edgewise. Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. We'll be at Hacker Halted in Atlanta, Georgia, October 10th through the 11th. EC Council is offering our listeners a 15% off discount to sit in for any of their bootcamp courses or workshops. Go to securityweekly.com/Hacker Halted. Register today. I'll be presenting. Jeff will be presenting, and we're going to what I think is going to be a really cool cigar bar. Haven't been there yet, but I'm excited.
Oh, it's a really cool cigar.
Let's go there with my good friend Jeff, man. Too bad Patrick couldn't join us.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
It's good. It's going to be good times. Good times. We have a very diverse musical in between segments. We play lots of music. I think it's some
90s hardcore rap.
It's interesting is that, I think about music and I listen to lots of different music, and I really look at it as an expression of who you are as a person, and I think that can come out in a lot of different things. I think martial arts is very much an expression of who you are.
Is he related to Marshall Mathers?
No. But also software, I think, is a great, and I think it's something we don't often emphasize when we talk to, we've done a lot of segments this year, but encouraging the youth of today to get into engineering and specifically writing software. To me, that's really just another outlet for you to kind of have that expression of yourself, right? And what really kind of, one of the things that brought that full circle was not just the fact that I'm writing code, but people's code who I've looked at a lot, I know it's theirs because it has that signature, right? I was talking to Mayhall today. Like, I know Mayhall's personality and I know his software, and they kind of go hand in hand. And I can look at different pieces of code and some of our own code and go, I know who wrote that based on the code, because it's an expression. And I think that's really cool. And I think we should, for our audience.
Is it a regular expression?
Could be a regular expression or an irregular expression. There's medication for that, but in any case,
get more regulars, get older.
You do that. You do, and more forgetful. What were we talking about? Oh, security news, right?
News.
Where do we want to start with? You said we had some stories in common.
Yeah, I think we do.
We do.
What is that floating in my drink? There's like a film.
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Bourbon.
Yeah, it'll burn off anything.
It's Whistle Pig. Or it should be.
Yeah. So let's see. Some of the things that I think we still had, two of them seem to be related here. Some stuff with Bluekeep. I think there's one that we had that seemed as though there's about 800,000 systems that have been seen worldwide on the internet that are still vulnerable to Bluekeep. And I guess...
But why? So why hasn't anything really bad happened? Or has it? Or
right, that's probably the other question. Like,
we were just talking about that.
Doesn't matter,
right?
Because sure,
do we need to patch these critical vulnerabilities?
Well, you can't. Can you? You can. There's a vulnerability for it, but it seems as though
a patch for it.
Yeah, right. There is a patch for it, but
is there a logo?
Probably.
Okay. If there's not a logo, why do we talk about it?
Only matters if there is a logo.
A scan on July 2nd showed over 805,000 devices vulnerable to Bluekeep attacks. Now, I'm assuming that's on the internet because they mentioned our good friend Robert Graham, who was on the show a few weeks ago.
Oh man, I missed all sorts of fun people.
Oh yeah, because we talked about because this is Bluekeep. This is the RDP one.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, there's about 800,000 systems that are still seen to be vulnerable.
But why? So why haven't we seen?
That's like 0.1% of systems on the internet. So
it's still a pretty big botnet, though. No,
yeah, could be. So your next question was going to be, why haven't we seen some kind of
like
worm?
why haven't we seen a campaign?
That's a great question.
Like we had Mirai, right? Mirai was like, wow, there's lots of vulnerable IoT devices, and eventually someone created a worm, and now Mirai code is in like tons of different Linux IoT based malware. I guess I should phrase it, but why?
That's a great question. And one of the articles that I saw that's in Wired has Marcus Hutchins talking about it. And one of the things,
Marcus Hutchins,
malware tech blog.
Malware, yeah.
And
he was picked up when he came to.
Yeah, he's going to jail.
He is. I haven't kept up with that story.
He's either going to jail or getting deported. I'm not sure which.
Okay.
Because I saw recently.
There's a big difference between going to jail here in the U.S. and getting deported.
Yeah, that's true.
Just say, like, I can go home or I can go to federal prison, probably somewhere in Colorado.
Well, it depends on where they deport you to, like Roman Moroni getting sent to Sweden.
Can they send you to a specific... stupid question. Can they deport you to any other place but a country where you're a citizen?
I have no idea.
I don't... Jeff, you're like a worldly kind of knowledgeable person.
What if your home
poke
country...
fun at me because I don't know these
What if your home country doesn't want you?
They typically will send you to the country where you have established
citizenship, right? Okay, so I did understand that correctly.
Yep.
They can't just send you to like Siberia. That's like not. I mean, if you're in Russia, that might be a thing.
That's not a country.
It's not. It's true. They could, if you're a Russian citizen, deport you, and you go to Russia, and Russia could decide to send you to Siberia. I guess is how that would
right.
Would
but
work.
If the U.S. is going to deport you, then chances are Russians are going to say, "Good job."
True. They're probably yes. Depending on what. Anyway.
Right. Okay. So
what were we talking about again?
Bluekeep.
Thanks for the whistle pig here. So I guess part of the reasons that this thing hasn't been wormified yet.
Yeah.
It is.
That's what we were talking about.
Right. That I was reading in this article here is that it's not exactly straightforward, and it requires somebody that is extremely good at reverse engineering and building these types of worms and vulnerabilities and exploits, building exploits, in order for it to really work really well.
But that's really telling that it's difficult to exploit, so therefore there's a ton of vulnerable systems, largely because there hasn't been a widespread campaign. But my opinion is that there are some, lack of a better term, lead attackers out there that have developed an exploit, are using it in a very targeted manner. Absolutely. Therefore, it's not getting a lot of press, so therefore there's not, a logo, a song, and a dance, and all this press like WannaCry where you got to go patch that. So people haven't patched it, but if the people who do have an exploit that are exploiting it, my point is, might be getting into an organization using that as a way in, likely mitigating or patching that so no one else gets in after them, because that, I would imagine that hasn't changed, that's still a thing. If I have got a target, they're vulnerable to something as a widespread exploit, albeit difficult to exploit, I'm still backtracing and going, I want to make sure no one else gets in on this system, and then I'm moving forward.
Well, if we look back at like Eternal Blue and how that one became public, that was a vulnerability, that was an exploit that the NSA had that got released.
It was.
So that's one of the things that Jake Williams is talking about in the article here, where it's really going to require some kind of dum-dum to put this exploit code out in the public, because it's not in the researcher's best interest to release that.
Sure.
So really, yes, there are people like Malware Tech has said that he has done it. He has created that exploit, but he's not sharing it with anybody. And he's not saying that he's using it for anything. And there are other people that have created that exploit, but why would they want that out there? Why would they have a tool that works for them? And either you're a white hat that's using it for who knows what, and you don't want any kind of maliciousness flying around the internet like that, or you're not a white hat and you're using that to your advantage, and you want.
You kind of think though, eventually it's going to leak.
Yes, absolutely. Eventually it will, and
I think it's amazing that this exploit has not leaked out by this time.
2 months now.
Yeah, 2 months is
least.
a really long time for
Right.
something of this magnitude to stay within a smaller circle.
How is it not?
I think it's only a matter of time before it.
Well,
gets out.
I think you answered your question by saying it requires work. I mean, and not to disparage anyone, not that we have to be like respectful of the bad guys, but largely the bad guys that go out and actually do breaches and do stuff, they're not that terribly sophisticated and intelligent. They do what's easy, and they do the stuff that's readily available, and people are just dumb and they don't fix things. That is different from national security, nation state, and all that kind of stuff, where it's targeted and there's more at play. But in the general private sector population, if it requires work, I'm going to pass over and do the thing that's easier.
Well, especially where things like the Not Pet You and WannaCry and Eternal Blue, those all still work. So why even bother creating one of these kinds of things when you still have vulnerabilities that work really well?
I think it also speaks to some of the maturity of the security researchers. We talked about the vetting in our first segment, right? That we very closely vet who we share exploits such as this with, right? And I can remember back in the day, I didn't develop the exploit, but I happened to be really good at finding certain ones that weren't like neutered in a certain way.
Yep.
And or got them working on my own, and like people asking for them, and certain people that I gave it to, may
You
have
just sit on IRC Wares channels.
They like that some shenanigans went on, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not sharing that with anyone, ever again, right? When I find the next one, I'm not sharing it. So there could be some of that going on as well.
Yep. One of the articles here that I was looking forward to hearing, I didn't read the article, so I'm hoping Jeff did, about the 72% of people who still recycle passwords, because password research is one of my kind of fun areas.
I did read the article, and it's
nothing new.
I mean, there's nothing new in terms of what we know about. I mean, passwords have been a problem forever.
What does it mean by recycled passwords in there?
Reuse.
Okay. So it's not the whole just increment kind of thing.
It didn't go into that detail. I mean, it didn't go into what does recycle mean, but I mean, I have certain throwaway passwords that I use and certain logins for certain things, and I've been using the same password for 30 years. Now, when I say that, I have the same phrase, but I do different permutations of it. So if you knew the phrase, you could crack it because you could figure out a program to try all the permutations. But, again, PCI requires that you keep a history of previously used passwords, and you're not allowed to use any one of, I think it's 4 of your previous passwords. So, it's interesting this article talks about people recycle 4 passwords. So people have this rotation of passwords that they use, 4 passwords, and then they reuse it. I don't know specifically the PCI impacts this analysis that this article talks about. But if you have a good password, I don't care if you reuse it or not, if it's a good password, right?
I'm debating whether I want to respond to that or just move on to the next story.
No, respond. Come on now. I mean, passwords are the Achilles heel of this whole industry.
If you have a good password that gets leaked.
I think one of the aspects of password, air quotes, security, right, is where you use it, right? I could have it's hard to say the most secure password, right? But I could have a 24-character password that mixes upper and lowercase, special characters, whatever, but it's 24 characters, right? If I use that or that gets stored in an insecure manner, the fact that I had a 24-character password
It's irrelevant.
doesn't matter. If it's on GitHub and someone pulls it down, if it's transmitted in clear text somewhere and someone intercepts it, I should not reuse that password because it depends on where and how that I'm using it. Now, on the flip side of that, the nice part about a password is if there's any indication that my password has been compromised or I just feel like it, I can just go in and reset the passwords. What was really telling for me about that is when we talk about GitHub, right? Because so many people put secrets and passwords and it ends up on GitHub and then the repository ends up public and then everyone has my passwords. Jack, actually our developer, the 15-year-old intern developer was like, yeah, dude, you just change them. I'm like, yeah, like you're right. Like we have total control over our application and the authentication. So when we release the next version, guess what? All of our authentication to all of our services and secrets and passwords is completely different now, which means the old ones are completely obsolete and we gain a different level of security. Now, that all depends on how we're storing the new ones, of course, right? The issue that I have with, if we go to biometrics for a moment, is it's really hard for me to change my face, to change my fingerprint, to change all 4 of my fingerprints, to change whatever biometrics I'm using because they're part of my retina scan, whatever it is. Really hard for me to change that if it gets out. And that's that double-edged sword with biometrics. I truly believe that the multi-factor authentication and combining these things together is what is much better and becoming more and more easy every year that we talk about it.
What's fascinating, though, Paul, is what you're implying there is that, because of the advancement of technology and some of the stories that we have up here about, I forget whether it's capturing pictures and photographs of your face and stuff like that, because there's so many ways to game the biometrics these days, that almost implies that we're relying more and more on the original authentication, which is the password, being what we rely on.
Does that relate to PCI somehow?
Everything relates to PCI,
of course.
At least in my mind. What I find interesting is, I was thinking about it. I'm not a millennial, so I don't do everything online, and I have access to certain bank accounts and retirement funds and 401k plans.
Do you have to be a millennial to do everything online, or is that open to everyone, Jeff?
I think so.
Okay.
Sorry, well, I mean, I don't default to what am I doing online. My point is, many websites that I go to that are what we would consider the more critical websites, banking and retirement plans and stuff like that, I typically basically use a one-time password, because every time I go to those sites, I have no idea what my password was. I don't remember what I set up, so I have to reset it every time, which is a pain in the ass, but maybe that's a form of security. I don't know. I have to reset the password and go through all their hoops of asking the security questions and getting something sent to my email or my phone to be able to log on. Maybe that's good, maybe that's not. I don't know. But passwords, we complain about passwords being sort of the Achilles heel, and that's we talk to pen testing people, red teaming people. Too often, that's still how people get onto systems. I've had conversations with John Strand about the PCI requirements for passwords versus the NIST requirements for passwords. And
sounds riveting.
Well, it's riveting, and it's not. Have some more whistle pig.
What are you drinking over there, Jeff? Are you drinking some Whizzle Pig too?
That's some pig.
Oh, Jameson's Black Barrel.
Nice.
Very nice.
This was mostly a full bottle that's not anymore.
That explains a lot.
So, Paul, you put up
what?
Like 18 stories here this week.
I was going to...
Which one?
If you let me talk, Patrick, I was going to transition.
Which one interests you the most?
Talking about passwords, how we pick on passwords, and I think that's one of the crux of the issue when we talk about bringing a burner phone to Black Hat or DEF CON or some security conference. I don't weigh as heavily on either side of the fence on this issue as some of my friends do, like Space Rogue and others, on this issue. I think that if you want to bring a burner phone to DEF CON and you've justified that, is perfectly acceptable. I think what Space Rogue is talking about and others are people that kind of get sucked into the culture and think that, oh, it's my first or second time going to DEF CON. Like, everyone tells me I need to bring a burner phone, and they don't understand, to go back to our previous conversation, the risk equation that goes into it, right? So, again, I'm not on the bringing a burner phone or laptop to a security conference is completely stupid, and if you do, you don't know anything about security. I'm not in that camp, and I'm not saying there's camps, but let's just say that was a camp.
You can go camping out there.
If it was, I wouldn't be in that camp, right? I'm also not in the camp of I don't know much about security, and therefore I'm going to bring a burner phone. Maybe I do know about security. I'm still going to bring it. Like, there's somewhere in between. Like, there's a calculated reason why you would bring a different device other than your primary device to a security conference. Yep. If that equation doesn't make sense, then you need some education, right? Like, don't think you're secure because, oh, I'm bringing a burner phone. And by the way, I really need to get to my Gmail and my Twitter and my Facebook and my LinkedIn on my burner phone.
And
like
my
that
bank account.
That defeats the purpose, right? Also, to Space Rock's point, no one's burning a 0 day to own your phone at a con. I wouldn't say no one. The equation for risk is highly unlikely that someone may burn a 0 day to gain access to your phone or whatever. Maybe they don't need a 0 day depending on how you configured it, but probably unlikely that someone's going to target you depending on who you are, right? So there's more factors that go into this, I think, other than some of the commentary takes into place. If you're a very recognizable figure, John McAfee I saw at DEF CON, right? You may want to take extra precautions. Some of those precautions might be bringing a phone. And I think burner phone has a different connotation as well. And I know I'm going to get hate mail no matter what I say on this topic, but whatever. Send it. It's paul@securityweekly.com. It's fine. But
I'm sending one right now.
Send it right now. It's
PSW, so we can all read it.
You know what? PSW@securityweekly.com. Say to Paul in the first part of the email, so everyone knows it's directed towards me. The whole team will see it. It's fine. But in burner phone has this kind of connotation, like you're going to bring a different device. How you configure that device is really kind of telling as to how you're managing your security. So in the past, I have brought a different phone. Some people term it a burner phone. Like, I didn't burn it when I got home. I might have wiped it and put different software on it and then, maybe given it to someone else or got a new phone when I got back. The burner phone implies that, like, I'm a super top secret spy and I've used a phone for this top secret mission to go to DEF CON, and when I get home, I burn it in the fire so that no one knows what I did. That's not what I'm saying. You might want to bring a different laptop, a different phone, a different tablet that is configured with just what you need to limit your exposure to what is bringing 20,000 plus hackers together at a conference, right? Which inevitably increases your risk. So yes, in the past, I've configured a phone and I said, look, and this is the burner, the more modern burner aspect is I brought a phone, wasn't my normal phone, because they didn't want to reconfigure my normal phone. And I'm not saying my normal phone's not secure, but I wanted to limit my risk. I'm going to leave that at home, configure a new phone. What do I want on my new phone? I want to be able to text people, right? So I'm going to put Signal on it so I can text everyone so I know where to go for dinner and stuff like that. I want to make some tweets. Maybe I pick my social network. Like during Black Hat and DEF CON, I'm not going to post to Facebook, right? I'm not going to post to Instagram, whatever. I want to post to Twitter, so I'm going to put my Twitter account on there. I'm going to put a 2-factor authentication on my Twitter account that right now might be SMS or whatever they support. Could be SMS, whatever. That's fine. Or not. But that's my security model, right? Then when I get back from DEF CON or Black or wherever I'm going, I'm going to change my Twitter password just in case, right? I'm going to maybe reformat that phone and then reuse it for something else, or go back to my other phone, reformat the other one, and call it a day. Maybe I change my email password or not, or I change out my two-factor authentication, right? I take some steps to say, when I was with 20,000 hackers, if something bad happened, I'm mitigating my risk, right? It's never 100%. I don't think you should go on the other side of the fence and just bring your primary device and say, I'm completely protected, it's fine. There's still some steps you take. I think burner, whatever, implies that you change your passwords when you get back, right? And it depends on what you want to do with it, too. Fine, if you want to bring your personal phone and turn off, and I've done this, too. This is another approach. Bring my phone, because I like my phone. I like the phone I have. And in fact, at this point, I like the phone I have. I'm not bringing any other phone but my phone because it's a Pixel 3 and I love it. So I'm going to bring that phone. But when I go to a security conference, Wi-Fi's off, Bluetooth is off, NFC is off, right? I'm going to use everything the way I normally use things. And when I get home, I'm going to change some passwords and then re-enable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I mean, if I'm super paranoid, the other factor in there is maybe I wipe my phone and I start over, just in case. Like, that's cool too. So I think the hatred towards the burner device at a conference is largely unfounded and not explored enough into the various aspects and details as to how you protect your own, how you do OPSEC for you.
And how much of this is the FUD of the wall of sheep?
That could be. I mean, wall of sheep, you really got to be negligent in security and sending passwords in clear text, right? I mean, that should be a given that you're a security professional. If you don't know that, hopefully you have a mentor that's teaching you that's saying, like, dude or dudette, like, you can't send passwords in clear text. Not just when you're at DEF CON, but when you're anywhere. And someone else makes the point, I don't know if it's Space Rogue or Alex Hutchin or some of the other respectable people that are in this article, although Marcus Hutchins is convicted of or being deported. In any case, I respect Space Rogue for sure, without question. You know, they did mention. Now I forgot what they did mention. What was I saying? They mentioned something about something.
Right. What was the next story? More.
I lost my train of thought.
More whistle pig. Thanks, Jeff.
And Jeff disappeared. Jeff couldn't even keep track of
Jeff
my
fell
train
over.
of thought.
Jeff fell down. Come on, can we put on Jeff's camera?
He just
there, look at that.
He's gone. He fell right off the chair.
Remember when he said that he drank the whole bottle of Jameson?
That's it. He's
Jeff
done.
Fell over.
Patrick and I holding
Good
down
night, Jeff.
I still remember what I was saying. But in any case, you can send me hate mail. Oh, I was saying that at a coffee shop, right? You want to have the same level of secure or practice OPSEC, whether you're at home, you're at a coffee shop, or you're at DEF CON.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You should be applying security and having personal OPSEC. And you might shift that slightly depending on where you're going. That doesn't mean that a burner device is a bad thing. I'll end with that. Jeff, I gave all the secrets away while you were gone, so
we didn't notice that you were gone.
Did you have comments on the burner? He's muted.
He's muted, so we can't even hear him right now.
Can't even comment on the burner phone.
No, I think it's why are we talking about it? I just don't think it's a big deal.
I thought my spiel on that was pretty good, but in any case,
I thought your spiel was a great time for me to go
spiel.
That's how great you thought it.
It inspired.
What other stories did we have in common, Patrick? Thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
It looks like you two have both had something about Slack passwords.
Yeah, I know. They lost some passwords. You should change them, by the way.
Okay, so we're all done with passwords. Are you even going to...
I had the same Slack password thing.
Right, that was you too.
Yep. The Lenovo thing I thought was interesting.
What's the data they leaked? 36.
It was all of it, 36 terabytes. It was like all of the data. But in reading the article, there was a statement that I highlighted in the show notes, and I quote: "These vulnerabilities, if exploited, could have impacted the integrity, availability, and confidentiality of the systems." And I thought that was an interesting statement, because usually integrity, availability, and confidentiality is used in association with data, not with systems, as well as the whole statement just sort of like was this big, huge, well, nothing really bad happened, but it could have, which I think is a lot of our industry these days.
So more FUD.
Yeah. It's more FUD, but in some ways, nothing happens unless there is FUD. So I'm ambivalent on the FUD.
Did you see the story about Alan Turing?
Only in here.
Only in your notes.
Tell us about it.
It's a very kind of emotional journey. I think and if it's not, it really should be, I think, for everyone in technology to understand Alan Turing's story in its entirety, right? Not just his technical achievements, but the entire story behind his life, how he was, I won't even say treated, I would say mistreated during his life by the, as Graham Cluley puts it, the establishment, right? And so his face is going to be on the new 50-pound.
Yep.
Right? I said that,
Yep.
I said that right in my like ridiculous U.S. view of the world. And this had to be hard for Graham to write. Graham says, it's a little too late, of course, to make up for the horrendous way that Turing was treated by the establishment. He chose chemical castration because he was a homosexual, and that was illegal in 1967. The Imitation Game is a great movie that I thought did a great job of bringing that to light to the the masses. But Graham goes on to say, it's a good thing that he has been honored, despite everything that happened. Still, it's a great thing he's been honored as one of the country's greatest scientists by becoming the face of the new 50-pound note. I thought that was significant enough to mention on the show, and I think any opportunity to talk about Alan Turing and his story, really, and his impact on technology is obviously significant. Those of us that have worked in the industry know how significant it was. So that was a pretty cool story.
It is a cool story, and it's weird because I live near DC. I grew up near DC. There's lots of statues of lots of famous people throughout DC.
Sure.
And I've always thought it's kind of weird that you get recognition, but you're dead, so you don't know about it.
Right.
And so it's always been kind of weird to me. Turing's contribution to cryptography, to computers. He essentially invented the computer.
Absolutely.
That he did not in his lifetime experience any type of recognition or acknowledgement of his contribution to the world. And in some ways, any of this posthumous type of recognition is, from a personal perspective, it's kind of pointless. But
yeah, it's like a facade to make up for past mistakes or not even mistakes, heinous crimes, right?
Right.
When you're right, Jeff, the person that deserves the recognition will really never experience that, right?
Right.
His legacy will benefit from it, but that's his legacy. He will not experience that because he's unfortunately passed away.
Well, not even passed away.
He committed suicide.
He committed suicide because largely due to the legal and the societal pressures that he was experiencing, because he was different.
Right.
And that's, it is important to bring that up, and it's important to bring it up because that's something that our community embraces to some degree.
Absolutely.
And so yes, we acknowledge that. And plus he's totally cool because he figured out how to automate a way to efficiently break the Enigma machine, which is
he's inspiration to all of us in security. It really embodies that hacker kind of spirit, right?
Yep.
And it is a role model in a sense to what we want to achieve in security and in technology today, right?
Absolutely. Along with that, since we're talking about World War II, most of us have probably heard that one of the retired Supreme Court justices, John Paul Stevens, passed away in the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. And not only was he a Supreme Court justice, I put the story up that actually talks about sort of his history and his experience in World War II. But he was actually a cryptographer working for the U.S. Navy during World War II, and so he was involved in cryptography, which is cryptanalysis, which is near and dear to my heart, contributing to defeating the Japanese in World War II because of his involvement as a U.S. Navy codebreaker. So the article I posted in the notes, it's a good read, and it goes in, a little bit more about what he accomplished as part of the, what we call the greatest generation. So that, that along with the Turing story is good bookends in terms of a little bit of history, a little bit of context, and hopefully a little bit of level setting in terms of the things that we go off on about in terms of our modern problems in terms of technology and security.
Absolutely. Oh, where do we want to go from here? I feel like I can't transition into a ridiculous story after talking about, people who contributed so much to real stuff, to technology, to society, to John Paul Stevens serving his country, right? And in addition to being the Supreme Justice, also early in his career, also serving the country. Like, how do you transition into something ridiculous after that? After people who are just outstanding citizens, in my opinion, in many of our opinions, right? I suppose we could lighten up a bit and talk a little bit about hacked Bluetooth hair straighteners. I just want to caution our community about how much we talk about IoT devices. I think it's important, first and foremost, to talk about security deficiencies and risks and public safety as it relates to IoT devices. We also had stories in here about webcams being compromised and the like. And I cover this on Hack Naked News, and I, for the life of me, don't understand why a product like a hair straightener, which many of us probably won't use in our rest of our lifetimes, but
not me.
My wife uses a hair straightener, right? And I love technology and I love automation, but maybe I'm just getting old, but I feel like a lot of things just don't get the use case. Like, why do I need to? Okay, so I've got a hair straightener. In order to get that to a certain temperature, I got to plug it in. Okay, and I want to configure that hair straightener. So I got to go get my phone. I got to log into my phone if I have a passcode or whatever, authentication. I got to start up the app. Probably I had to create an account, and I got to log into that app. And once I've done all that, the app then lets me, this is after I find my phone, because if you haven't lost your phone in your own home, you're not human, you're alien of some kind. And after I've done all that, then I can set the temperature and how long before that device will turn off. Even though, in my best assessment of the story, this device is plugged into an electrical outlet where, why can't I just use this device? straighten my hair.
Right.
Use some kind of interface on the device, like a blow dryer has the like hot and cold and like 3 buttons to set like how forceful the air comes out of the hair dryer. Like, why can't I use the same kind of interface on my hair straightener to set the temperature and how quickly it will turn off? Or better yet, when I'm done straightening my hair, which I don't have, so I wouldn't use this, but my wife's done straightening her hair, she can unplug the device from the wall.
Just keep it simple.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Hey,
And I love technology. I love home automation.
You're growing up, Paul. I'm so proud of you.
In the context of a hair straightener,
what?
I don't get.
Yep.
I mean, I can even see it on a coffee machine, on a refrigerator. I want this level of home automation on my home HVAC device. To me, that's way more important. There's this electronic device, mechanical device that is responsible for heating and cooling in my home. Why doesn't every home now have an app that I can monitor for any kind of air condition I mean, yes, the thermostat, I can set the temperature. What about the device itself? How is the air? I want to know, being a nerd, how's the airflow? How is the heat exchanger working? There's multiple permutations of this beyond the thermostat, which I think is great. I was one of the early adopters of Nest. I want to know about the HVAC system in my house. Is it getting enough water? If you've got I have a hydro air system, right? It creates hot water for the faucets and the showers and all that stuff, right? And it cycles hot water over pipes and blows air over that to create heat. Like, I want to know, like, what's my gas pressure? What's my water pressure? What's my water temperature? I want to know about those things. My hair straightener that I'm going to use every once in a while to straighten my hair. Why do I need some kind of fancy interface for that? I guess what's frustrating for me is why hasn't this technology been adopted to things that I believe really matter in your home versus things that like really don't. The problem could be solved in a different way and be more secure, such as physical safeguards that just simply don't let it be like engulfed in flames, right? Like printers, for example. I think, Jeff, you spent some time with HP, and we talked about the physical safeguards that even if you're remotely hacked into a printer, there are physical safeguards that prevent it from getting set on fire. I want the same thing in my hair straightener, and I want to worry less about the risk of this thing getting set on fire, because specifically, I think it was Pentest Partners or someone that did the research that said, we really wanted an IoT device that we could set something on fire. And I respect that. I'm not knocking them in any capacity from a risk perspective to be concerned about public health, to make sure that I don't get something in my home that can set on fire. I respect that, right? In this case, I think that problem can be solved with more physical and mechanical limitations than software and application and Bluetooth low energy protocols. In any case, get off my soapbox now.
You're so close to being a grown up that I'm proud of.
I'm like almost a curmudgeon.
Why you're so close to being a curmudgeon?
When my goatee gets a little more gray, I can reach like full curmudgeon status. I got a few years to go, Jeff.
I mean, what you're saying is important to you. I'm like, yeah, it's as unimportant to me as the stuff that you're saying is unimportant to you, and that's the remaining gap that you have to traverse. But for all of this, the technology, the question that you're asking, why do you need this for a hair straightener? Ask it for all of it. And that's the barrier or the threshold that you need to achieve to become truly a curmudgeon.
I think that in the home or in the enterprise, right? I want to monitor things that are running all the time that could potentially pose a risk, right?
You do, but not everybody does.
Sure. Like I want to know if there's a flood. Ideally, I want to know before there's a flood, right? I want to know that my hot water tank
is leaking.
I want to know before it's leaking that there are signs that it could leak. And when it starts leaking, I want the water sensor to send my phone an alert
you need
to say, there could be water in the basement, right? But some ad hoc device where safety can be implemented in a mechanical manner versus a more technology or software networking kind of manner, I'm less concerned about. However, the focus today, if you looked at Amazon Prime Day, right, there was tons of home automation stuff on sale. And I'm like, and a lot of it was ridiculous. I want to focus on the things that matter to maintaining and running a home that can benefit from technology rather than pushing technology in a direction that can be solved with less technological means. If that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense to me. I think it was 2 years ago at B-Sides Las Vegas. I was hanging out with people that we used to work with that were running a program called Doppler, which basically was projecting all the web traffic, which at the time was mostly unencrypted. And because B-Sides LV is a family event and there was kids there was some concern because people were surfing porn, people were going to various sites and it was projecting on this big screen all this stuff that certain people in the audience shouldn't see, and they were freaking out about, oh, what do? We gotta filter it. And the person that was running is like, well, it just captures it. I don't know what to do. And everybody was trying to figure it out. I just walked over to the video projector that was projecting the image on the screen and just put my hand up. I'm like, problem solved.
Right.
Not a technology solution. It's just like, you don't want to see that stuff on the big screen? Stop projecting it. It's all a matter of perspective.
It is. It's somewhat similar to like my oldest son being on Instagram, right? And sure, I could write some really fancy software to monitor what he's posted on Instagram and send me alerts and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, my friends and family who largely understand security and understand technology follow my son on Instagram. So when he posts stuff, people tell me. Very similar to like there's an inappropriate image, put your hand in front of the projector. Very similar to someone texting me going, this is what your son posted on Instagram. You may want to talk to him. And again, it was nothing like earth shattering. It was an educational moment. I didn't yell at him. I didn't punish him. I was like, dude, like, look, like, that whatever you post on social media, the world can see. Now,
it's forever.
I'm going to build upon that and say, like, Dad's friends are all going to see that too. Like, we all look out for each other, and everyone's going to see that. We're going to report that. Like, if any of us saw, like, our child posting, like, we're going to tell each other, right? And that's not even because we're in security. That's just, like, the community kind of nature of it. And it's, back to Jeff's point, like a non-technology solution to a seemingly technology problem where, like bad image, put my hand in front of it. Like bad Instagram post, friends see it. Maybe they call me up, send me a text. Next time they see me, like, oh yeah, like your son posted something like not horrible, but maybe this is what he posted, right? And I was like, I showed him on my phone, like, dude, what is that? Like, and it held it up on my phone, so he got the visual image that like everyone sees what you post on social media, Dad included. Like, here it is. There's no like, I didn't post that on social media kind of thing, right? And I'm like, just take it down. Like, it's not. I mean, it's like, dude, it's not a big deal. But I'm like, we should probably take it down, right? And he's like, oh, well, how do we do that? So, all right, well, figure it out.
There's a delete button somewhere.
There's a delete thing in there, and he knows how to do it, right? So, agreed, Jeff. Sometimes education and non-technical solutions are the way to go.
Well, and sometimes we get so spun up on, because we're so focused on the technology solution. Yeah. We sometimes forget the ability to just sort of take that step backwards. I mean, we were talking earlier about how we get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go out and walk in the garden. I'm not connected to technology when I'm walking in my garden. So whatever's happening, I don't know about it. I don't care about it. And I know I'm not normal. I'm old. And,
but I tried to take 3 of my dogs for a walk this morning, and It wasn't at 5 a.m., right? It was after I went and got breakfast and before I came to work. And my wife's got a broken ankle, poor thing. And so dealing with the dogs is difficult. So I'm like, before I'm going to work, it's like 9:30. I'm like, I'm going to go take the dogs for a walk. And I tried to like drink a coffee and take the dog. You can't do that, right? With 3 dogs and trying to do with the car, and then they're pooping and I got to pick it up. I got to put my coffee down and they're spilling my coffee. Non-technology time is important, is my point.
Yep.
But speaking of technology, one last story.
Okay. One last story.
I know we're hesitating because like we don't. We got to talk about the ridiculous story.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to go there.
This is fake news. I think what we very quickly determined. Again, a non-technology solution, and speaking to crowdsourcing, not just what your kids are posting on social media, right? But like crowdsourcing, we're like, this is a fake website. However, the headline was so ridiculous that we couldn't not cover it. So the headline
and by
was,
we, you mean you.
Me. I saw the story and I'm like, this is ridiculous. A woman is arrested at an Apple store after inserting half a dozen stolen iPads in her vagina.
Yep.
I'm like, no. And we did cover stories where people were, I don't know if it was an Amazon warehouse or somewhere, that were like stealing like tons and tons and tons of iPads.
This way?
Not this way.
Okay.
Not inserting them in themselves, but they were just stealing them, and they did get caught, which I guess has a security aspect. How do you control your inventory, right? Is maybe not like an IT security problem necessarily, although it could be, but monitoring your inventory, monitoring your cameras, screening your employees, things of that nature, tagging your stuff maybe with RFID to see if it left the building, things like that. But this is fake news.
I sure hope it is.
It's satire news. It's not fake
Security agents at Toledo's Franklin Park Mall arrived quickly on the scene of the crime after a suspicious employee had them intercept the thief. And the quote is, "I couldn't believe she had managed to cram 6 iPads in there. We had to make her spread her legs wide open and check in with the flashlight just to be sure there weren't any more left," security agent Alan Bells told reporters. There's even a picture of a mall security guard, purportedly Alan Bells.
Wow.
But not the lady.
Totally legit.
I think Johnny knows her. Johnny from Toledo.
I don't know. Maybe a shuffle, a nano. Anyway.
We could have closed out with a
That's
story
what
that
she
was
said.
somewhat related to our earlier discussions.
Johnny sounds like he knows this from experience. That's
Close this out.
Other related articles from the same website. Teacher on crystal meth strips naked in class and bites 2 students.
Well, that sounds more real than the other.
In New Mexico, 116 injured after drunk police officer tases suspect in pool.
Oh, boy.
Please, for the love of God, close us out.
Stop.
Elderly woman is accused of training her 65 cats to steal from her neighbors.
Cut his mic, Johnny. Cut his mic.
Morgue worker arrested after giving birth to a dead man's baby.
Over and.
This one's close to home. In Boston.
Oh, no.
Members of midget crime gang suspected of 55 break-ins. You must have heard about this because don't you work in near Boston?
Sometimes, yeah. Right. Just like did you hear about the midget fortune teller that broke out of jail?
When Matt's going to be in the studio next week in Colorado, a hunter claims he was sexually assaulted by a Sasquatch. We're going to have to ask him.
For the love of God, close us out.
Jeff's going to fall over again.
Patrick, please close us out because I think I peed myself a little.
Just a And we are over. And
a couple hospitalized after a man gets his head stuck inside of his wife's vagina.
Stop.
And it was
I can stop. Please.